Hi, it's Dr. Connie. So when I gave birth to my second son, I had lupus flare affecting my kidneys. So while my health was great concern, I was more concerned with the melasma, the brown spots from my hormonal imbalance on my face. I felt it made me look sick, making my sickness visible to everyone. And I always felt that as long as I can hide my sickness, I can cope much better because I could pretend I'm okay. I didn't like the concerned looks from those around me, and if I could only pretend to be just like everybody else, it was far easier to handle. But due to the melasma, my sickness could now be seen and I couldn't deny the truth. I've gotten facials, chemical peels, laser treatments, and tried countless creams on my face to try to get back my flawless skin. But I knew that skin issues like melasma were due to my gut dysbiosis. And despite all my futile attempts with various beauty treatments, it wasn't until I addressed my gut that I not only got rid of my melasma, but also healed from my lupus. So a little bit about gut health. Our gut defines our health. It's the one organ that affects all systems in our body. And not only that, eating is something we do daily, and the food needs to be processed through our gut. We are complex organisms, and most of our genetic activities are bacterial. So human colon consists of 1,000 trillion microorganisms, and that's 10 times the amount of human cells. So our intestines weighs about 1.5 kilograms, and it's a unique and vital organ. And its metabolic activity rivals that of liver. And it's responsible for immune and GI maturation, and it's also responsible for normal central nervous system development. It's also susceptible to colonization resistance, which opens you up for opportunistic infections, and immune system modulation, and it's also responsible for metabolic modulation. We don't understand everything, but it's an important organ that is responsible for the health of our whole body. So a little bit on the leaky gut or gut permeability. We've all heard this term before. The body needs a barrier to entry, but due to our gut permeability or leaky gut, pathogens and toxins are able to enter the body or our body, causing an immune response. And over time, this influx of pathogens causes our immune system to work hard to a point of exhaustion. And our immune system requires lots of energy to keep fighting the bad guys. But the problem is that due to the gut permeability, the necessary nutrients are not being supplied to our cells, causing a vicious cycle of inflammation. The immune system begins to become dysfunctional and slowly breaks down and causes various symptoms to start to manifest. It may start with aches and pains or fatigue, rash, hair loss, and some digestive discomfort. And if you don't do anything about it, it can potentially lead to a full-blown autoimmune condition, just like it did for me. So how do you fix the gut permeability or the leaky gut? So fixing leaky gut is the first thing to do. That's because the gut directly controls our immune system. Our gut microbiota as well as probiotics play a major role in immune modulation. So how do you modulate the gut microbiome? Well, you do it with diet, because without this, you can forget about the rest, like probiotics, prebiotics, antibiotics, which will undo everything you're trying to do. And of course, there's this concept or this new developing procedure called fecal transplantation. So let's discuss a little bit more about what probiotics are. So looking into history, in 1965, Lilly and Stilwell proved that certain microbials produced growth-promoting factors in our gut. Then in 1989, Fuller proved live microbial feed supplements benefited the host, which is us humans, by improving intestinal microbial balance. Then in 2001, we found that viable microbial food supplements beneficially influence the health of humans. However, it needs to be live with proper colony-forming units. So a little history on probiotics. Probiotics is a word derived from Latin word which means for life. The evolution of probiotics parallels that of humans, which can be traced back to the ancient times nearly 10,000 years ago. So probiotics were on fruits and vegetables. And 10,000 years ago, humans fermented beverages. And yogurt developed about 3,000 years ago. And Hippocrates used sour milk actually for GI disorders. And humans discovered natural fermentation of foods like beer, kimchi, and sauerkraut. So the actual godfather of probiotics is Eli Metchnikoff, who won the Nobel Prize in 1908. He understood that an innate dependence of the intestinal microbes on food makes it possible to modify the flora in our bodies in order to replace harmful microbes with good microbes. So let's talk a little bit about the types of bacteria. There are various types of bacteria that we all need to be familiar with, especially because there are countless options to choose from. There are lactic acid bacteria like Lactobacillus species, Bifidobacterium species, and Streptococcus thermophilus, which is actually a yogurt starter. And then there are non-lactic acid bacteria like Bacillus species, Propionibacterium species, and E. coli. And then there's the non-pathogenic yeast called Saccharomyces boulardii. And then let's talk a little bit about the Lactobacillus characteristics, which are that they digest and metabolize proteins and carbs. And they also help to synthesize B vitamins and also vitamin K. It enhances the innate and acquired immunity, and it's actually a very powerful anti-inflammatory, and it protects against pathogens. Now, the Bifidobacterium characteristics are that they ferment non-digestible fiber, and they make or help to make B and K vitamins. It enhances it enhances immunity, and it's also anti-inflammatory. So bacillus characteristics are that it's primarily used in traditional fermented fish, like in Japanese food called natto, and soy foods. It enhances immunity and promotes colon health via heat shock proteins. And Streptococcus thermophilus characteristics are that, as mentioned, they are yogurt and cheese starters. They prevent cell damage and protects from Streptococcus species, and it's clinically used to treat ulcerative colitis. And Saccharomyces boulardii characteristics are that it's heat and pH resistant. They are active ingredient in Asian medicinal teas, and it increases enzyme activity in our gut and supports against dietary protein allergies, as well as it's protective against candida in the gut. Let's discuss a little bit about the uses of probiotics. The use of specific probiotics may vary, and it can be used to treat the following. It can be used for antibiotics-associated diarrhea, C. difficile-associated diarrhea, and other types of diarrhea. It can be used for irritable bowel disease, inflammatory bowel disease, vaginal dysbiosis, as well as urinary tract infections and lactose intolerance, certain allergies, atopic dermatitis, as well as eczema, and it can also be helpful for high cholesterol. So the importance of gut health. So gut health is personally very important to me as I've struggled with gut issues most of my life. I've talked before about clinical assumptions of autoimmune patients. There are 3 things that we assume are present in all autoimmune patients. They are, number 1, that they are genetically predisposed, and there is a gut permeability present, and there's almost always a triggering event. And as a formula-fed baby, I lacked the necessary bacteria, developed gut permeability, had the genetic predisposition to autoimmunity, and had a trigger, likely due to stress. I've tried most all holistic and conventional interventions to try to keep my lupus under control. But it wasn't until I seriously understood the importance of gut microbiome that I began to notice a significant improvement in my health. Not only did my health recover, but it became fully predictable to where I felt like I was in control fully in control over my own health. In my career as a functional medicine practitioner, I've not only helped thousands of patients reverse their disease, but more importantly, regain their hope for a future. This is where it all starts. It all starts in our gut. I not only recommend viable various life strains of probiotics, but almost always advise clients about the importance of their diet. Because without the diet supporting the probiotics, you might as well not take the probiotics. If your lifestyle doesn't change, it doesn't matter how many supplements or probiotics that you take. It won't make an impact in the way that you want. So which probiotics should you choose, or can you consume them via foods? I had this discussion with a physician friend of mine who was excited about a patient making kimchi. My only concern is that when making homemade fermented foods such as kimchi, sauerkraut, or yogurt is that we don't really know what species will grow and how much. So I grew up with kimchi, and it's a staple food, so much so that we typically eat it at least one meal a day. I've seen my mom home-make the kimchi, and it's a long process with many steps and requires ample amount of salt and lots of fish sauce that is heavily often loaded with MSG. One can argue that we can find a better quality fish oil without MSG, however, still a concern due to the inability to know exactly what species are present in such fermented foods. What I can tell you is that if you have digestive issues, it's likely that you won't tolerate such fermented foods. In fact, you won't tolerate a high dose of even probiotics or prebiotic foods like certain vegetables. So it's important to know what's right for you, especially if you struggle with symptoms mentioned above. So what should you do? Well, I recommend taking a live probiotic from a trusted source that contains Bifidobacterium, Lactobacillus, and Saccharomyces boulardii if you suspect you have SIBO, which means small intestinal bowel overgrowth. If you get frequent infections such as sinus, urinary tract infections, or even upper respiratory infections, or have been taking antibiotics, then it's more important to replenish your gut flora with the good probiotics, and you'll need a plan to do so. And if you have brain fog, struggle with energy, or have an autoimmune condition, you'll need especially higher dose for a short time. Should you need recommendations on specific probiotics, please feel free to comment or contact us at 678-335-5566 or email us at info@alkalinewellness.com, and we will make recommendations for pharmaceutical-grade probiotics that contain live colony-forming units in the amount and the species that you need. Thank you so much for joining me for this lengthy blog today. And if you have any questions, please comment below. And as always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, like and follow our Facebook @Alkaline Method and @Lupus Rebel, as well as our Instagram feeds. Have a great week and see you next week.